have you ever played a game that just really felt like winter? There's a moment in Death Stranding when you step out into this timefall rain-ridden world for the first time, seeing a landscape that is just ravaged by a myriad of environmental disasters, and the music by Low Roar kicks in as you walk and make your way to a safe house. And it's an incredible moment that really feels like the perfect blend of this lonely comfort that I associate with winter. A game that feels like winter can be extremely subjective from person to person, from the actual atmosphere a game creates to individual factors, like someone having played a game in the depths of winter making you nostalgic for that time whenever you replay it. Either way, I think there are just some things that really define a game as a quote-unquote certified winter banger for me personally, and so I just want to share some of my favorite winter vibe games and why they just hit different, playing with a hot cocoa in hand and snow falling outside, figuratively for me, because where I live it just doesn't really snow, we just get ice falls, which is not as fun. In my opinion, there are a few main things that define a winter game for me, but the main one, above all else, is its atmosphere. Yes, this is another video essay about atmosphere in video games. No, I'm not sorry, I swear it will be good and worth your time. Because under that broad term of atmosphere falls the story, environments, weather, and music that all play into this winter feeling. Each game I want to talk about here are, of course, my subjective opinions and limited by the experiences I've had in games that I've played. So if you have any games that are like this for you, I would absolutely love to hear, and be sure to let me know in the comments. But the best way I can describe what I think of as winter games are ones that match the feeling of sitting in a cold room with a steaming hot cup of hot chocolate or coffee, all bundled up in a blanket, or just reading a book next to a crackling fire in the dark calm of winter. Something that matches this feeling I personally associate with winter, that of the constant reminder of the impermanence of life and death set against the knowledge that, while spring and life and all the things are on the horizon, this oppressive, strange comfort of winter is what we have to live through for now. It's this strange juxtaposition of lonely yet comforting, dark and oppressive, but with moments of reprieve that kind of let you soak in that harsh reality from a safe space more often than not. And for this to come across in games, it's the world and sound design that are so key to this, and often sound in particular with an emphasis on these quiet moments, without music even, just the sounds of the world around you. Safe rooms in games are a great example of this, such as your tiny shelter on your first night in Minecraft, or resting at a bonfire in any Souls game, but more on that later. For now, grab your hot cup of choice, bundle up, and let's talk about games that just feel like winter. The first game I want to talk about that I think does all of these things so well is Death Stranding. Aside from just being one of my favorite games, Death Stranding is one of those games I just automatically associate with winter. Between Kojima's mind-bending storytelling and the literal atmosphere of the game being an oppressive and confusing one, with the timefall rain aging everything it touches and creatures from the beyond seeping into our real world, it all makes for a real cozy time, until you get grabbed and pulled down into the sludge by a BT. The real standout here for me is the landscape of Death Stranding, which for those of you who haven't played, is often just as intimidating as these BT creatures. The landscape itself is an oppressive force that you have to prepare for each time you step foot outside of a facility, so you have to map your route and decide what tools are going to be best to assist you. If you're going up a mountain, you'll probably need ladders and power gloves to hold on to that rough terrain. Or if you're going through a ravine-covered field, well, you have the option of some power armor. Of course, you also have your mountain snow-covered region, which helps this winter feeling. But in Death Stranding in particular, I think I also just love the steady, non-timefall rain moments, because they really embody the terrifyingly comforting nature of, well, the nature of winter, and how strangely comforting something as destructive as nature can be. Kind of reminds me of a movie that I love, The Day After Tomorrow. It's a sad disaster movie, but with crazy weather happening all over the world, it's kind of weirdly a comfort film to me. I don't know what that says about me. There's also something to be said about the eeriness of spaces in this game, and I think the word liminality is a more proper term here, because so many places you traverse through and areas you go in Death Stranding are 90% familiar and normal, but just strange enough even on the surface, to create this feeling of unease in most of the world aside from your safe zones. Much like places that are perpetually entrapped in winter in the far corners of our globe, in Death Stranding, nature itself is constantly battering you down and creating that oppressive atmosphere. But much like those places, the comfort you feel in Death Stranding when reaching a bunker after a long journey, or when the relaxing music kicks in after defeating a boss, is genuinely such a sense of relief only matched by something like, I don't know, say a bonfire in Souls games. When talking about lonely yet comforting games with an oppressive and strangely cozy atmosphere, you can't not talk about FromSoft games. If you haven't played any Dark Souls or Elden Ring type games, you might be a little confused on this one because, yeah, these games are not one most people would probably think of as cozy winter games. They're often dark, dreary, and downright depressing with dead worlds and even deader characters, that's a word, inhabiting it. Not only that, but they're just a little difficult, you might say. But despite its difficulty, it's a genre that many people find to be strangely relaxing at times, and myself included. And that is because the developers at From Software are simply masters at crafting a dark fantasy world in the aftermath of any kind of destruction. Destruction and rot that, while yes, presents a land full of awful, terrifying creatures and tragic stories, also intentionally shines light on beauty too, however small that beauty may be. From hub areas like Firelink Shrine to every new bonfire you light to just Solaire, these moments of reprieve are so important in a world that seeks to beat you down at every turn, and it's this balance of warmth and relief from those moments with everything else in the world wanting to murder you that makes these games feel like winter to me. Dark Souls 2 in particular is the pinnacle of that for me, honestly simply because Majula exists. While in other Dark Souls games and Elden Ring you have your bonfires and sites of grace that present an immense feeling of relief upon finding them, Dark Souls 2 has Majula. Like, what a vibe. Majula is the hub world, essentially like your Firelink Shrine from Dark Souls 1 if you're familiar with that, but if you're not, it's just where you kind of can come back to no matter where you are at any point in the game. In a world and game that is so oppressive you want to lose your mind at the decisions made, like adaptability, every time I return to Majula and hear those waves and that melody and bear seek lest, I am able to breathe a sigh of relief. This contrast of beauty and darkness is what Souls games do so incredibly well, to the point that if I were to talk about it anymore, it would be a whole video, which I did make a whole video on how Elden Ring in particular does that, so if you're interested, there it is. And I can't really touch too much more on Dark Souls 2 as I honestly haven't played that much of it, but what I have played, Majula is just such a vibe. And while the Souls series balances this dark oppression with really calm moments, you can have a game, and often have games, like Kingdom 2 Crowns that is just a whole cozy vibe. When I think of comfy, cozy games with that embracingly lonely winter atmosphere, the Kingdom series, both Kingdom New Lands and Two Crowns, are the perfect embodiment of that for me. These are beautiful pixel art city builder type games where your whole goal is to build up a little kingdom on an island, defend against enemy attacks at night, and eventually move on to the next island. This gameplay loop is simple, fun, and can get pretty intense the more nights you survive, but even in those moments, the game is such a nice chill vibe. Not only is the art style jaw-droppingly beautiful at times, I mean, look at this, like when the sun hits the incredibly animated water with clouds simultaneously reflecting what the skybox is showing, pure art. And then the music kicks in. I mean, I don't think I need to say anymore. And out of all the games I've played, and even the games on this list, I think this is one of the top cozy games. As it's low stakes, let me just sink right into such a beautiful, chill world where I can gallop through a forest on a majestic steed and also have my little peasants chuck firebombs at monsters at the same time. So if you played any games similar in art style and vibes to this, please recommend them to me. I absolutely need more of this in my life. And next up is a game that I almost didn't put on this list because I usually don't like to talk about games I haven't fully finished or played enough to feel like I can talk about in detail, but Sable is an exception I'm gonna make here. Just from looking at this footage, I'm sure why you can tell it's on this list. It's got a great art style, you get to play as a weird little guy. It's actually a girl, but semantics. You get a day and night cycle that completely changes the atmosphere while keeping the overall vibe of the game intact. It's all there. Similar to Kingdom, the gameplay is simple yet engaging. In Sable, you get to play as a young girl set out into the world to just find her purpose. find what she wants to do, as her tribe has a tradition that when reaching a certain age, children are allowed to take a quest to simply discover what they like and what they want to do. So that's what you do, and that's your only goal. You get a little sand bike, you get to glide across the sands of this land, meeting unique people and tribes along the way that all have a different way of life. Some are fishermen, some machinists, some sewers, and more. I wish I could speak more on its contribution to this winter feeling aside from its art style. Oh, and the music. Oh my word, even just the main menu music is one of my all-time just favorite video game soundtrack pieces because it's incredible. But the game has just such a great overall chill ambiance that is just exploring this world in the shoes of this girl who's just trying to figure out what she likes to do and what she wants to do. Like I said, I wish I could speak more, but I just haven't played enough to do so. Even still, like I said, I wanted to share it here because I really like Sable, and I don't think enough people know about it. But speaking of games that people don't know enough about, next one is, one that you've maybe heard about since its release. I don't know, it's a pretty niche game. It's Skyrim. Aside from Souls games, I would say Skyrim is the epitome of this cozy winter atmosphere game. You've got a beautiful yet dated art style that just screams nostalgia in the best ways. Taverns to chill and have a pint in, and just so many ways to find yourself once again getting utterly lost in this world and just slow walking through any number of Skyrim's forests and mountains. I think I probably have like 80 to 90 hours in Skyrim, rookie numbers, I know, but all of that is without going up to the dudes at the top of the mountain, which is like step 5 in the main campaign, because every time I hop back in, I just start a new playthrough, either trying out different mods or just wanting to try a different build and end up doing everything but the main story, because no matter what mod or graphical pack I play on, I just find the feeling of existing in Skyrim an incredibly comforting one, like that hot drink on a dreary winter day. I can't quite pinpoint one specific reason to this like I have in other games in this video, but similar to Sable and Kingdom, a huge part is how every aspect of the game comes together to create a feeling. From the weather effects to the first-person immersion that it provides, and the enjoyable jankiness, which is definitely annoying at times, but overall enjoyable, it all just works. And really, I do think it's due in large part to both the incredible medieval fantasy atmosphere that is present here, alongside the nostalgia the game brings for us, both perhaps for a different time in the players' lives or a different time in the gaming industry as a whole. There's a debate to be made about the use of nostalgia being widely negative, and while I certainly agree for lots of topics, Skyrim is just not really one of them. So, maybe putting Skyrim on this list is a bit of a normie pick, but it feels right at home with a cozy winter day to me. Just walking through the fields of Skyrim at night at like 3 a.m., peak vibes right there. Next up is, just the greatest game of all time, full stop, Outer Wilds. No spoilers here, of course. If you haven't played Outer Wilds, stop this video right now and go buy it and play it. I'm serious. It is the most incredible game I've ever played for so many reasons, nearly all of which I can't say here because it will spoil the incredible experience of this game. For those unfamiliar, Outer Wilds is an exploration-based space game where you have to explore your solar system to uncover the many secrets of the universe, of your universe specifically, with the only sense of progress and story coming from what you uncover. That's it. Like, you can do essentially anything in any order, and everything will all point you in the same direction, but everything you do is just based on what you uncover. That's it, and it's so good. It's seriously the most incredible experience I've had in any entertainment medium, and it's the setting of the vast loneliness of space contrasted with the very few comforts you find within it that creates this wintry atmosphere here for me. Because here in Outer Wilds, this comfort comes in a lot of ways, but primarily in meeting other lone individuals on each planet that have set out on the same journey as you. And each of these individuals, as unique as they are, their journey is just as unique. And not only do their journey and tune reflect the others, literally in the case of the musical tune that they each play on their respective instruments, they also do figuratively, because each of them, including you, are all part of the same space program aiming to understand the nature of this beautiful but also incredibly dangerous solar system. Since it's a space game, it is very immersively physics-based, and you can and will die in many ways. But the struggle is part of your journey, and having moments to sit and meet with a fellow traveler, a fellow explorer, is such a great little bonfire hot cocoa moment in the face of a planet-devouring black hole or a storm-ravaged planet. Lastly, we have The Last of Us Part 2, a game that you surely know for its high Metacritic score and not for any other reasons at all. Look, I really like The Last of Us Part 1, and I really like Part 2. They feel like very different games in many ways, and Part 2 is such a darker experience, both visually and tonally. Before we talk more though, it is important to note that I have not finished this game yet, and I'm probably about halfway through, so please no spoilers, but yeah, I know it's a contentious one to say the least for its story, but that's not what we're focusing on here. We're focusing on its atmosphere, and as far as the atmosphere, it's incredible. I personally really love the darker tone that this experience has in contrast to Part 1, partially because I love your good old dark apocalypse worlds with moody rainstorms that fit the scene. But that aside, the dreary nature of Seattle in particular in this game is both narratively and tonally relevant, emphasizing the dark atmosphere present within Ellie's mind as she furiously seeks to achieve her goal. The Seattle rain pouring down, the snow in the beginning of the game, and Jackson, and the music above all else gives this game that eerie comfort feeling that I really adore about the series as a whole, but feels even more present and looming here in Part 2. The post-apocalyptic setting of The Last of Us is one that I associate with winter because of just how despairing it is. A world in ruins with no cure and people just fighting to survive, trying to live forever in peace until one small slip-up can destroy all they've built. It's depressing to say the least, but those small moments of comfort just stand out so much to me. And say what you will about Naughty Dog, but the world they built here is always really paralleling that narrative being told. We have the abandoned, nature-reclaimed skyline of Seattle reminding you of death and loss while Ellie is mentally in a pretty terrible place. We have rain and storms swelling with our emotions and pivotal story moments, and most importantly, the environment and story takes its time to pause when needed, to sit with these characters and allow them moments, even as brief and far between as they are, of a little bit of peace and a little bit of warmth in this dark, oppressive world, and even a little bit of guitar playing. So, those are some of my favorite games that just feel like winter to me. From the different atmospheres to music and worlds, I really love each one of these for their own reasons, and I hope that if you haven't played some of these games, I inspire you to check some of them out, especially the Outer Wilds, you better do that. But I'd love to know any games you personally associate with winter and why that is, so be sure to chat about it in the comments below. I try and read all the comments and all the things. But thank you for watching, and make sure you take the time to sit down and rest at your own campfire along the way. I hope you have a fantastic day.